Hello, this is Ruben from Dubb, the Action Online Summit. Thank you for joining this session with Mario Martinez Jr. And we're going to be getting into this topic of how to hit a sales quota and to do it with style. So Mario, if you could start with a short bio and let's get right into it.
Ruben, thanks so much, my man, for having me a part of the show. I'm excited. This is a great event and great opportunity. My background, 23 years I spent in sales. 5 years ago, I became an entrepreneur, started a company that is now called Vingresso. Vingresso is the world's largest virtual selling training company in the world. And I had no idea that I would be here where I'm at 5 years ago when I stood on the stage talking at LinkedIn's annual users conference. They invited me to speak. And 3 months later, I was out on my own. So been in technology, consulting, SaaS, computer software, telecommunications. I just spent my whole entire life inside of sales, and I love selling. So that's what I'm here for. And we're going to spend some time talking about making quota, man.
So talk to us. Let's get right into this. Why are we not hitting our quota?
You know, it's a really interesting question. I think one of the challenges that we see happening across the sales community is that since we've gone virtual, and that, by the way, Ruben, that's not changing very much, right? Since we gone virtual, and even when things start to swing back, we'll still be a virtual environment. So what we've done as a sales community, sales leaders specifically, most of us are 45 and older. That's where we sit at for those that are in that VP role and above. Well, what we've done is we've given out tools, digital tools. Hey, go use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Go use the greatest video sales tools that are out there, like from Dubb as an example, and start pumping out video content. Start connecting with anybody you want on LinkedIn. Throw more email at them. So get out there and use SalesLoft, Outreach, Zant, any of those types of tools. And we've just thrown tools at our sales reps and said, go make it happen. But I've got a saying, man, a fool with a tool is still a fool. And that's one of the problems that we have with our sales community is that we have given them tools and technology and haven't given them the right type of skill development and training to be able to progress well in terms of our prospecting cadences. Another thing that we see that's a trend that is happening, I don't know if you saw this recent statistic, but LinkedIn in one of their research studies just reported that they came out with the increase between February of 2020 and February of 2021 on the increase in the number of emails that have been delivered into someone's box. And the increase that it went up to, 40.2 billion more emails, 40.2 billion more emails. So one of the big challenges that we have as a sales community that we as sales leaders have never really dealt with is how do I stand out from the crowd and be able to capture someone's attention? And this is an important one here to talk about, Ruben. In fact, I think you're going to show a picture. And one of the pictures that we are going to show, this one right here. We did a survey, and it was asking sales and sales leaders, what is the hardest part about selling during, in this case, COVID-19 quarantine? And believe it or not, sellers and leaders said the hardest thing, 60% of them, was getting the first conversation. And then closing the deal was 27%, and everything else was, single digits to qualifying the opportunity was 10%. So it's amazing that what we are looking at here is the hardest thing right now is to get our buyers' attention. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, how do I stand out from the crowd? And you can take that down if you want. How do I stand out from the crowd? How do I get my buyers' attention? And then how do I, as a leader, actually coach to a skill set that, frankly, I did not use when I was prospecting? Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Wait, you want me to keep on going?
Here's another slide if you want to speak to this. I'm really curious about this.
All right. So this one actually is a good one. So we actually did another survey, and this was about I think about third quarter 2020. I forget the actual date, but it came from our remote selling article. And one of the challenges that we also see in the industry in synchronous communication, so that's two-way communication that people are having, Ruben, is since March of 2020, we asked the question, what percentage of the time do you now turn on video when hosting a virtual client or prospecting discussion? 56% of sellers said they always turn it on all the time. And then the rest of them were between 36 and 70%. My God, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We had to figure out a way to replace that handshake with our buyers, that face-to-face conversation, the smile, the eyes, building of trust. And you're telling me that sales reps and sales leaders did not make it mandatory that every discussion that you have with a buyer, your video was not turned on? We're missing the mark. And so in that particular regard, I think one of the key challenges that we're seeing out there is video is hot. Video is very hot. And we need to be thinking about how to leverage it both in asynchronous, so one-way video communications, which you guys do an excellent job at, and synchronous communication. And people need to be able to see the smile. They need to be able to see your eyes. They need to hear the modulation. They need to be able to see the facial gestures. And when you combine both the audible and the visual together for synchronous or asynchronous video communication, that is the beginning part of being able to use multiple senses to build trust with your buyers. That's one of the things that we're seeing really that sellers and leaders need to be thinking about. Make it a mandatory process. Do not show up to a meeting without your video turned on, even if your buyer does not have video on themselves. Always have your video on. It's super important. And the second piece that you want to be thinking about is really, what do I do in terms of being able to drive a prospecting cadence that will actually allow my sellers to succeed? So we have published an article called What is Prospecting? It's a definitive prospecting guide. And inside of there, Ruben, we talk specifically about sales cadences. And we took some time this year to revise our sales cadence. Now, most of our customers have always been specifically focused on phone and email, right? You've got the phone services that are out there and dialing people up and hopefully getting people on the phone. You've got our BDRs, you got our full sales cycle account executives. You even have our global account managers, all trying to make sure that they're targeting the right buyers, and they're using tools like phone and email. Now, these are things we've always used. So we had to ask ourselves is, wow, if email went up, email volume went up 40.2 billion more emails, 40.2 billion more emails as between February 2020 and February 2021, my goodness, what do my sellers do to stand out from the crowd? So what's incumbent upon us as leaders is we have to think about the inbound and the outbound sales cadence. And that inbound sales cadence, if you actually show that picture, there we go. So that picture right there basically showcases the ability to be able to leverage a multi-channel. Now, this is that omni-channel approach that you want to be able to have as a sales leader so that you can have your sellers engaging where your buyers are at. Now, we've developed this one in its 18 steps, and there's a series of days that have been put out there. And we've actually used a lot of great data that came from SalesLoft, Outreach, and Zant on when you should make the connection, when you should do the social touch, and what was the highest response rate. So we built that sales cadence. But if you notice, you could just start on there one more time. If you notice the sales cadence, you've got in the first few touches, think about this. Connect on LinkedIn. That's a social touch. Call them. This is for inbound, by the way. So someone has proactively said, I would like to get to know you or more information. So you connect with them immediately on LinkedIn. You pick up the phone and call them. And by the way, those that call within that first 5 minutes of that lead submission, that's your golden ticket right there. Then you email that person. That's all day zero. Next one is we're going to do some social engagement if they haven't responded. We're going to follow on LinkedIn so that we can actually trigger a notification both on email as well as through their LinkedIn notification. Then we're going to pick up the phone and call them. And now on day 5, we're going to actually send a video email. Now you can stop sharing for a second. You might be asking, why on day 5? Why are we going to do that on day 5? Why don't we just send a video email right from the beginning? Well, the reality is that whether it's on inbound or outbound, the studies show that when you use a video email after you've warmed up that contact, you're going to get far greater results on a reply. And it's usually on day 5 after you've touched them 5 other ways. Now, I want to talk just for a second about our engagement with buyers. Ruben, never before in selling history and buying history have has this happened before? If you think about our buyers today are digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and video hungry. I'll repeat that. They're digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and video hungry. Now think about our sellers and what is our selling motion? We are digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and video producers. Never before in buying and selling history has these attributes ever aligned so perfectly in the marketplace as it has today in this time. And so as a direct result, we as leaders, man, we need to be thinking about how do we equip our sellers with the right tools and provide them the right skills training to be able to leverage these tools effectively. Because I've seen some really, really bad videos. I've seen some really bad prospecting emails. I've seen some really bad social engagement. I mean, bad that we're seeing across the board. So that prospecting cadence I showed you there is that what we call that inbound. If you look at the outbound, which you can throw up here in just a second, right there we go. It's a very similar cadence that's really structured around when you should do something and the touch points. And again, look at video messaging right there. Are your sellers using video today? If you're not, you are missing fundamentally one of the major components of what is today's virtual selling model. And you cannot be successful without using what we call an omni-channel experience. And you can throw that next infographic on the board there. There you go. So here's that infographic right here. And I'm gonna squeeze over here to the left so you can see my face right there. But this is what we call the old way of selling. The old way of selling is what we cold call, we email blast, we oftentimes attended networking events. We also ask for referral. But the new way of selling, the new way is really centered around leveraging gift marketing, leveraging social selling, leveraging text messaging, leveraging direct mail, video, the digital referral, and everything in between. That's the new way. You can take that off. And what we need to be thinking about as leaders is how do I equip my sales organization with all of the right tools to be able to stand out from the crowd and give them the right skills to be able to be effective. And Ruben, I'll take us back to, remember our good old days when we were cold calling? We were in the cube. When we learned to cold call, maybe you can answer this question. Do you remember that Y connector you used to plug in next to somebody at the cube, and you plug in the Y connector and you would listen into their calls while they're making their calls? Right. That's old school. That's how we grew up learning how to be able to do cold calling, right? But how do we do that today? There is no Y connector today for a cold call. There's no Y connector for a video. There's no Y connector for my social engagement. So we used to train our sellers, and we still do, on effective techniques for cold calling, on how to be able to reach our buyers. And now we gave them a new format: LinkedIn, video, text, email is kind of old, but it's still there. And we said, go be successful without the proper training. And that's where companies like Vingresso come in, where we help sales leaders and teams be able to create more sales conversations with digital skills training. And that's where we focus on, is prospecting better so that you can sell more. Hopefully that answered most of your questions.
Thank you so much, Mario. This was tremendous. What a powerful 14, 15 minutes here. Where can we learn more about you, about your business?
Vengresso.com, VENGRESO.com. You can certainly go there. Feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. Say you heard me at the Action Summit here with Ruben and the whole entire team. Make sure you personalize the LinkedIn connection request. And if you don't know how to personalize, that'll be your first free tip. Go ahead and click on the More button on my profile. Click on Personalize invite and send me that note.
Thank you so much, Mario. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man, for having me.